make sure I was getting a good demographic sample. What I found was by people sitting around a board game playing together, and I did a lot of groups where we'd have maybe 3, 4, or 5 groups at a time playing, so maybe 15 to 20 people in a room together. What I found was all of a sudden people got that opportunity to connect. Everybody made new contacts. I had all kinds of little Facebook groups that were formed from people who had played together, and they continued the dialogue they had started that night and developed friendships and relationships and business connections. But more importantly, what I saw is every single place I went, without fail, every single place I went, somebody in the group would have a story to share that they personally knew someone, or they had a friend of a friend kind of thing, who was going through so much financial stress. And this was, obviously all started after the collapse of the stock market and the real estate market, that everybody knew someone who had taken their life or attempted to take their life because of the financial strain that they were going through, and had a story about how the financial impact of what people were going through had affected families and broken relationships. And a big part of that is because people are so isolated now, because we're hiding behind this facade that social media has allowed us to create. I go on Facebook and it's like everybody's life is wonderful, to the point where you think, wow, everybody's doing so much, and no one really talks about what's really going on behind their closed doors and what they're really dealing with. And certainly we're never going to do that on a public forum if you have any sense at all. But what's happened is there's been this isolation that's been created that I've seen, where people feel like it's only happening to me. Yes. I'm the only one. And what happened in the game is all those walls came down, and it was like all of a sudden, oh my gosh, you don't know that either, or oh my gosh, you had that happen too. And there was this instant connection of people feeling like, oh, it's not just me. Because one of the things I always witnessed in working with people in financial services, I would do a lot of workshops for big groups. And about once a quarter, we would do a workshop for women only, because we wanted to open up that dialogue. And what I would always find is someone would raise their hand and say, I know this is probably a stupid question, but, somebody would finally get brave enough to ask the question. And literally you'd see half to 2/3 of the room going, oh, I was wondering that too. And it makes people go, oh, I'm not alone. So when you get people live around a game board playing together, you have this exchange and this comfort zone, if you will, of people letting their guard down and feeling like, I can ask the questions, I can share, I can open up. And that's part of that accelerated learning is people, they're having fun and they let their guard down and they open up. And now suddenly you have this sense of community that people didn't realize they had. And I will always have a board game version for that very reason, because I think we need to go back to having that sense of community. We need to go back to that place where people can sit around a table and have dialogue, open dialogue, and not feel isolated behind the screen of a computer.